Hi there, everyone. My name is George Hripcsak. I'm director of the Columbia OHDSI Coordinating Center, and welcome to, I believe, our 12th OHDSI meeting. Thank you all for coming very much, and I thank you very much this year. You know, with all the changes in the U.S., unrest around the world, we weren't sure how our attendance would be, and I'm happy to report that our attendance is quite good this year. We peaked last year, but if you look at recent years, we are where we were targeting to be, so that's wonderful news. We can give you the actual numbers later on, but it's well over 400. So hello and welcome. Start off thanking our symposium sponsors, Boehringer Ingelheim, IQVIA, Johnson & Johnson, Gilead, CL, EPAM, Odysseus, Nemesis, and Thesaurus Health. It's through that sponsorship that allows us to put on this meeting, to keep our registration fees to about a third of what we estimate they would be if they didn't have the sponsorship, and to offer food and things like that. So we thank our sponsors for keeping this meeting alive. We want to thank our inaugural OHDSI Advisory Board member, Amgen, which not only helps with this meeting, but helps keep the lights on in the OHDSI Coordinating Center, advises us in the future of OHDSI, and interacts with us on other initiatives. I'll come back to this in a later slide. It's an enormous amount of work to put on the Collaborators Showcase. The Scientific Review Committee did a lot of work. I ask the people on this list who are on the committee to stand so we can thank them. And thank you to those who made today happen. I especially want to point out the first name on the list, Elise Katzman, who spends a year of her life putting this on. Here she is over here. And I want to thank all our volunteers. If everyone would stand up who's on this list too, so we can thank them. I'm not getting a lot of stand-ups. All right. All right, thank you. And finally, the Titan Awards. These are the nominees. So these are people who are recognized by their peers as contributing significantly to the community, and these are the nominees. You'll be hearing the winners of the Titan Awards at the end of the day. We ask the nominees to stand up so we can thank them for their contributions. As you know, I had programmed. We lost 2 Titan Award winners. This year, Jamie Weaver and Andrew Williams, far too young. And I had programmed for this to happen because I can't help it, but we want to spend a moment of silence to recognize their contributions and condolences to their families. We had a community call about recognizing Jamie Weaver's contributions, and we'll have one for Andrew Williams in about 2 weeks, recognizing not only his contributions, but our collaborative spirit. And so please join us in 2 weeks for that. They and we work towards OHDSI's mission to improve health by empowering a community to collaboratively generate the evidence that promotes better health decisions and better care. Our values, innovation, reproducibility, leftover, community, collaboration, openness, and beneficence. Thank you to Craig Saxon for putting together this year's Our Journey book. Thank you, Craig. It's available online. We didn't do the printout because we saved a little bit of money. We didn't know how many people could come to the symposium at first, so we were being a little bit conservative. But the book's available online, and it's great as ever. And in fact, the slides that come are basically taken from that. Our collaborators, here's our newest map. Almost 5,000 collaborators as measured in our Teams environment. Now I have to remember to say 88 countries instead of 83. 9,000 followers. 21 time zones, 6 continents. Still haven't gotten the 7th, I'm sorry. I know I've mentioned that many years, and we will get back to that. And it is feasible for the newcomers. It's just that it's one person, and we just have to get them to give us their medical record. Literally. It's someone who's in the armed forces of the US and had volunteered his record for us so we could say all 7. Work groups led by the community. So we work through the community. These are the leaders who are helping us do that work. Well, I'll say this again, tomorrow will be our big work group day. And so we thank all the leaders for putting their time and effort into running Odyssey. Also, we work through our regional chapters and network around the world, and for Europe, our national nodes. And actually in today's, the second half of today's opening, we'll be recognizing our international leaders. A common data model. This is the same numbers, honestly, that you saw last year, still 12% of the world's population, but we did update this figure, which I think is impressive looking. This is a publication by Claire Blacketer in JMIR this year, the European Health Data and Evidence Network, or EDEN, and what it accomplished in its mission. And if you see Europe, usually we show these maps and you see we have a dot over there in this part of the continent and a dot over there. Now we've flipped it. It's not about where we have a dot, it's where the dots are missing. So what you see on the map is a mostly filled map with a couple of spaces missing that we need to fill in. So that's the progress we've made over 12 years. Common data model remains strong, shown here in this picture. And our Odyssey standardized vocabulary is updated with 12 million concepts, 88 million concept relationships, and strong work here at the symposium. Scholarship is going well, once again, and I say this every year nowadays, as opposed to the first 5 years. It's one big fuzzy ball. We are a community. We started off as different pockets that were fun to point out who's here and who's there. We can no longer do that. It's one big fuzzy ball. We have over 900 publications now, and in top journals like JAMA, BMJ, Lancet, et cetera, JAC, our partner in reliable research. So we're doing well there. We're working on the new edition of the Book of Odyssey. Thank you to Christian Reich and Sarah Seeger for leading that effort. And shown here are the contributors who have written towards the book. There are some potential contributors not listed in this list, and they promise to get their chapters done as soon as possible after the symposium is over. Open source development, we thank the contributors, which is a core of Odyssey. We have 41 R packages within Hades. The CRAN packages have been downloaded over 1 million times, so we're doing very well there. Upcoming events are inaugural. Very excited about our inaugural Odyssey Africa Symposium to be held November 10th through 12th in Uganda. And so that's an exciting event. I hope that people are able to travel and join. And this has been years in coming. I know a lot of people, Cynthia Sung and others, Andy Cantor, have been working to see this moment come true, and so it's coming true now. And we have our 2025 Odyssey APAC Symposium coming up December 6th through 7th in Shanghai, and we look forward to that event also. Supporting the journey. So I don't know if any of you noticed, but there's been some changes in the US and what it's interested in funding and so forth. Maybe some changes in FDA. Some of our funding has changed or been eliminated. So some of the things we use to keep the lights on Odyssey are no longer there. So we really need help of the community to keep Odyssey going, at least Odyssey going the way we currently know it. We again thank Amgen for being the inaugural advisory board member. Being an advisory board member helps us in a couple of ways. One is to give us feedback on how we should go forward and what is needed by the community. OHDSI doesn't want to work in a vacuum. It needs to know what people need from OHDSI, because that's our mission, to generate reliable evidence. We don't want to be the only ones generating reliable evidence. We want to help the community to generate reliable evidence. That's what the mission says, is to help the community. And we need to know what the community needs. Being on the advisory board, they can advise us and where to move forward in each of the areas. Also, practically, it supplies the funding so we can pay for things like the infrastructure, the servers in AWS, the people who run those servers on AWS, the people who run communications and all the pieces. It's about $1 million a year to run OHDSI, so we need to collect that money somehow, and that's amplified 20 times or more, probably more so now, through voluntary efforts, which are not actually volunteer, I realize. You know, their people get their own grants and they put their time towards it, or their companies put their time towards it. But as far as from our view, it's our $1 million investment is magnified many times over around the world. But without the $1 million, we don't have the thing that holds the community together and that represents OHDSI, say, to the various governments and so on. So we hope we'll have others, and I know at least one other is hoping to join the advisory board, but we need others to join the board to make it into a real board. We need at least 6 members if we're going to have a real board that gives substantial feedback to OHDSI. So we hope you'll consider that. The advisory board is $100,000. Also, the symposium sponsors are $25,000, sometimes less for startups, but that's the base contribution. And we thank you for coming, and your registration fees, though reduced, are still appreciated for helping keeping the symposium running forward. Here's our agenda for today. Here's the opening session. Over the years, you've given us feedback that, you know, if I'm going to sit there and look at the front of the room, I could do that on Zoom and not pay the travel costs. What I want to do is talk to people, interact. And so, and specifically to add more to the collaborator showcase, the opportunity to interact. So we've done that. So after the state of the community and the recognition of our international leaders, we're going to have a networking activity followed by the collaborator showcase first session. Then we'll do our traditional plenary for the late morning, have lunch, come back for a special lecture for the second half of that plenary, and then go to the collaborator showcase, going back and forth between viewing the posters and the very popular lightning talks. Then we'll do our Titan Awards, our closing activity, and our photo at 6 o'clock. So please be here. We like having everybody in the photo. So that's today. Tomorrow, I won't go through the agenda, but tomorrow we have the work groups are meeting, and the thing is available online. Oh, and don't forget to vote on the collaborative showcase. So this QR code is the code that gets you to everything. That's the list on the left. But in particular, I'm looking at best contribution to the showcase voting form. So please vote. Talk a little bit now about truth in science. Truth in science is a common topic in the news recently for various reasons. OHDSI was founded to promote truth in science and trust in results. So every year I write an opening letter to the Our Journey book that Craig edits, and I thought I would talk about this. And so I said, what are the ingredients that lead to truth? And here's what I came up with, for better or worse. It's largely driven by Martijn Schumi's JAMIA publication on the 10 principles, although turned around slightly. I thought it was fun to look at it in this way. Some are about science in general, and others are specific to observational research. So desire is the first necessary component to truth in science. You have to desire the truth to obtain it. If you don't want the truth, science can do nothing for you. So that's the first principle. Doubt. Even if you desire the truth, if you think you already have it, then you're done, and you don't need science. Can't help you unless you doubt your own position and are open to other conclusions. So that's very important as you go into this. You have to be expecting the unexpected. Temptation. Human nature and unconscious mind being what they are, if you make cheating possible, you will cheat. It's not just that they're going to cheat, you're going to cheat. You can't help yourself. I can think of a paper that's extremely high on my citation list that is like a classic exercise in something that I won't say out loud. And it wasn't on purpose. I think we did a good job and we got the right answer, and I think it happened to be the right answer, but if it had pointed more strongly to the wrong answer, would we have let that happen? You know, I don't know. And I wasn't the lead on that, but I'm sure that, you know, you don't see it when you do it yourself. So that's why in OHDSI, we only work through pre-specification of the design of the experiment, so you can avoid the temptation of embarking on an iterative tour straight to your suspicion or hope. And you can't help but getting there unless you pre-specify. Judgment. Every step of the experiment should be judged for accuracy and reliability through diagnostics, replacing mere assertion of your competence and your experience. I mean, think about it. If you've sat in review sections for grants, it's always about, well, they're a good group. So that's it. They're a good group. Or they've done this before. Okay. I mean, we want diagnostics. We show, here's what we did, and here's the actual evidence that we've done the right experiment. Generosity. You have to share your data, your methods, and your software so that others can replicate your experiment. And we do that quite a bit. Perspective. An important way to tell if this experiment is true is to try different data, different approaches, different contexts, methods, and related hypotheses. And then you can study the operating characteristics of your study and triangulate to a more stable result. So two different analyses that are supposed to do the same thing, do they do the same thing? And two different hypotheses where they're supposed to get a different answer, do they get a different answer? Negative controls being one example. Or, you know, you notice that we do a study on hypertension. We tested 10,000 drug combinations. We only published some, but we've made them all available to the public. And we did not cherry pick. We decided ahead of time which ones we were going to focus on. But looking at that 10,000, we can see, well, are 9,000 of them positive? That would make me suspicious. And that's what I mean by the operating characteristics. I can see if none of them are positive or all of them are positive, I'd be suspicious about my own answer. Reach. In medicine, you need to account for variation in the human population and reach around the world to uncover true differences. And in fact, the plenary is talking about network studies, and that's a large part of this. Honesty. You can't just publish your positive results so they become valueless because others won't know how many experiments it took to get to this one. So we have the logic of statistical inference and a p-value. It only works if you publish all your studies. If you hide some studies, the p-value is no longer the p-value. So you have to disclose also the results of your diagnostics, which we do before we even look at our own results. So we've put this forward to editors in the past, and sometimes the answer we get is, well, no one will do observational research anymore if you try to follow those things. It's hopeless. So where, for better or worse, I've put this forward. It's a little odd, but I said, okay, well, people do good things in the world. So first four people popped into my mind, believe it or not, which shows you my psychosis. One was George Washington, despite his involvement in slavery, I acknowledge, stepped away from a third term as president, set the pace for a new nation that become a world leader. Martin Luther King Jr. for his pursuit of truth and fairness despite the sacrifice. Mahatma Gandhi for his satyagraha, or devotion to truth. And more recently to Pope Francis for the direction he set for his church. And so I thought about that, like, how did I get there instead of like Newton and Galileo or something? Because that was just what I thought of. And the answer was, in my unconscious mind, the toughest part of truth in science is not about the science. So then you say, well, if that's the toughest part of truth, what's OHDSI doing? And in fact, members of OHDSI can address that second part, which is the non-science part of truth in science. But OHDSI still has a role, and that's what these examples I'll tell you about are that. And that is the science half of that. So there is a science half of this, despite the toughest part being outside of it. And each of us as citizens should work on that other half also. So like 20 years ago, I'm in a civil court case in New York on trademark infringement. And so, let me see, okay, good. So there's one clothing manufacturer made things, shirts, pants, whatever, and they were like a more expensive brand serving a more expensive community, and then there was a less expensive brand serving a less expensive community, And the more expensive one was suing the cheaper one for trademark infringement because they claimed that they were producing clothes that looked identical, and especially the trademark, the little thing that often goes over your left pocket. And so they did the case, and the lawyers for the plaintiff, that is the expensive brand, were two guys in suits. I kind of wonder, and the lawyer for the defendant was this tall guy with a cowboy hat. I'm willing to bet he wore a cowboy hat only in the courtroom as part of his outfit to gather the trust of the jury. But one of the things and he was good though, and one of the things he did is they each had experts proving that the trademark did or didn't infringe, right? And that's what they present the two sides, and the jury decides which one they believe. And the defendant gets all the data from the other side, and in the 1,000 or 10,000 individual, what you do is you show it to people and say, are this confusing or not? And they say yes or no in some way, and they come up with an answer. And they found like 10 places where there were coding errors. So the lawyer for the defense says, and now turn to page 327. What does it say there? And then let's go to the sheets, the original sheets that have to be kept. Let's go there. And what does it say there and there? And aha, is that not a code? Is that correct? And could that affect the result? And so he did that over like 2.5 hours to point out 10 coding errors out of these 1 or 10,000 answers, poking legitimate holes in the opponent's argument, but then put forward his case. Having undone the credibility of the other side, he could then make assertions. Now, they had their own case. I don't remember exactly what they presented. It wasn't, that compelling to me, but whatever. They they didn't get any holes poked in their argument, either because the plaintiff didn't think of it or because there were no holes in their argument. They knew enough not to let that happen to them. But by then, they had poked enough holes in the other case of these individual mistakes of coding errors that, they had a stronghold on going further and further with their assertions about how little these two things overlapped. Okay, so now we get to the jury room. Okay, there's like 7 jurors. And, I looked at the thing, I counted the 10 coding errors, I just counted them, I put them in the other side, I redid the statistical test in my head, and I figured out, okay, yeah, this is pretty convincing evidence that there's a lot of confusion. Plus, frankly, you look at the thing, and it's pretty confusing. So, in fact, it looked almost identical. So we get in the room, and I don't know, there's a TV show 50 years ago called The Odd Couple, and there's the neurotic guy, Felix, and the sloppy guy, Oscar. And in one of the episodes, Felix is on a jury, and he's the neurotic guy who's against the rest of the jury. So I walk in the room, and it's like 6 jurors dead set against the plaintiff, and me for the plaintiff saying, no, this is really it. Well, there was one guy who was in the middle and was willing to listen, and the other 5 were like, there's just no way, there's no trademark infringement here, there's just no way. One guy went in, as soon as we left the voir dire, as soon as we got put on the jury, he said, I'm only going for I don't need to hear the case. So he was just like, I'm done. I don't need evidence. I know we're going to go for the less expensive one. So then ensued a discussion, and I wasn't going to say I have a master's degree in statistics or anything like that, just like completely. I might as well be the suit guy of the plaintiff's jury. So I just kind of listened. I'm talking. I'm saying, well, I kind of feel this way. And the guy in the middle was helping a little bit. And then it got not so happy. It got rough for a little bit. People got pretty angry at each other for a while there. I said something. I said, well, everyone has this bias. And the police officer, jury member is like, he stands up, see, you're biased, So we were in there longer than the judge expected. And in the end, what we ended up doing is we decided there were 4 trademarks. And I just convinced them that one of them was really trademark infringement. 2 of them were also, but they were not as bad as the first. And one of them was a little bit further out, and I guess could have been decided the other way. So what we compromised on was that we would count at least some trademark infringement of the first one, and then we'd let them go on the other 3, and that's where we ended up. And the funny thing happened, and then we went out, we gave our opinion, we came back in the room, and it's funny how human nature, so we're all friends then, because we got to know each other, and all the negative side was completely gone. So we're hanging out, we're getting ready to leave, and we're being nice to the clerk, and we said, okay, we'll clean up. So we put, like we have all these shirts and boxes, we put everything away. One woman in particular, jury member, was being nice and was the chief one who was putting things away. And we're ready to read. And I just said, wait a minute, I just want to ask you to do something. Can you just, before we leave, can you just hand me that box? And I ask her, she takes the box and say, what does it say on the outside of that box? And it says one of the company names. And now, what's inside that box? And it's, of course, 50-50 mixture of the shirts from the two manufacturers, which she had tried to put in the correct box, but she couldn't tell the difference between the two shirts. So then they all started laughing, and we didn't feel bad. Like, we did the best we could. We were a jury, we put our time into it, we took it seriously, and that's the decision we made. My point here is science versus debate. It was because the science was only slightly flawed on the plaintiff's side that it gave so much ammunition that they then went from science to debate as the next step and made a lot of progress where they think, they might not have gotten such a good determination if it weren't for that. So then we get to climate, because who can't go to climate? Uses the same tactic. I read a book that says that it's unsettled that human activities are changing the weather. The climate's certainly getting warmer, and we are certainly increasing the CO2, but we can't prove that our CO2 changes are changing the climate. And the approach in that book, the first half of the book, I think shows some legitimate flaws in not in the big report, the big international report, but in the summaries of the international report that I think look legitimate to me. And then takes the second half of the book and goes in debate mode, and it actually says that the book, the author says he's a debater, not taking a neutral position, that is not taking a scientific position, and goes into, well, we don't need to do anything, basically. So it's the same tactic. You start the beginning poking the hole in the science, lose the credibility, and then you go much further in debate mode. I think it's a lesson for us that I'll come back to in a moment on Odyssey. And then lastly, I'm good. 2 years ago, so we've given this story 2 or 3 times now, just for the newcomers here. There's this, in 2023 I gave the update to the story, but I have a new update. So there are 2 diuretics, hydrochlorothiazide and chlorothalidone. Hydrochlorothiazide is the one everyone uses. It's favored as effective with few side effects, but the research community believes in chlorothalidone because it is truly longer lasting and more potent. And there's been an effort over 20 years to bring chlorothalidone back. If you supply a grant and say you want to study one of them, you have to study chlorothalidone. You're not allowed to study hydrochlorothiazide. There was an indirect meta-analysis, which is a form of observational research that said that favored chlorothalidone. We did our study, the LEGEND study, in 2020, and we showed equal effectiveness, and hydrochlorothiazide is safer. So that's the drug we're using is this preferred one and not the ones that the researchers are pushing. We published our study, and there was a letter by a number of people, and the most important letter was by 3 people. One of them was Tom Frieden, who is a former New York City Department of Health commissioner, the largest health department in the country, and then the head of the CDC, and then led TB effort in India and so on. So was a famed person. And they disputed our results. They just said it's probably confounded, wait for the randomized trial. Randomized trial came out in 22, the VA study confirmed OHDSI's findings. And frankly, since then, there have been 4 other large-scale observational studies that agree. But the research field largely ignores the RCT, saying it must be flawed, pointing out things that I don't think are fully legitimate, and up to date still favors chlorothalidone based on the beliefs from earlier, despite all the evidence. So in June or July, I get this thing. So Tom Frieden went on and he created this thing called the formula, and it's a pretty good weekly thing that describes truth in medicine. And one of the episodes was he was talking about a number of things, truth in science, and an example he gave was diuretics and hypertension, and gave basically the story I just gave you and says the RCT came out, and while his friends poked holes in it, he doesn't see those holes, and he's convinced and changed his mind and believes that, we can't favor chlorothalidone anymore. He didn't go as far as to get rid of it, but he doesn't favor it anymore. And this is a thing that he publishes and went around the world. And in that paragraph said, and in fact, not only that, there was a large-scale study that confirmed it at a bigger scale. And he pointed, and the link is, of course, to our paper. So this is the paper that he wrote the letter against that we had to respond to, and now he's come around and is actually pushing forward our results. He also, by the way, says RCTs are not the gold standard of evidence, that observational research is important. So what I like about this is we published this thing, we met with resistance, but you can convince people, we can make a difference. So OHDSI's job is not to debate or try to convince people who don't want the truth. So that was that first slide. But its job is to supply the truth to those who want to know so they can bolster their arguments and then win debates by not having holes poked into it. Now, eventually the truth wins. We just hope that the cost is not too high to get there. And so we want to smooth the path to getting true answers. So as long as OHDSI exists, it will stand for the truth. All right. That was pretty good. As I said, the second half of the session will recognize our international leaders, regional chapters, and national nodes. We're going to start off with brief talks by 3 of our leaders, and then we'll come back and have a little exercise. So let me go straight to the talks. First, Peter Hripcsak, sorry, Peter, about DARWIN EU. We have your slides up here. Please come up.
You can just use the arrow. Okay, yeah, thank you. Let's move this up a little bit for the Dutch guy. Well, good morning, everyone. It's really a pleasure to speak to you about a very interesting project. And I must say, this is the project that you want to have in your career. I'm extremely proud that we are delivering real-world evidence to the European Medicines Agency. DARWIN EU is initiated by the EMA, European Medicines Agency, to answer questions from their committees. And you see this in this picture. On the top left, the different committees from EMA suggesting questions and having questions and asking the EMA to do a request to the coordination center, the yellow circle in the middle. And the task of the coordination center is then to assess whether this question is feasible, and if it is feasible, to execute the study in the federated data network. And that means creating the protocol, creating the code, sending around the code, getting back the results, synthesize the evidence, and then send back the results as a document to the European Medicines Agency. And it's really exciting that we are the yellow circle. And this was a contract given to Erasmus Medical Center, and we do this together with Oxford University, IQVIA, the Hive, and Odysseus. What's really exciting about DARWIN EU is its impact, and there is a very nice publication you can find here with the QR code that describes the real-world evidence framework to support EU regulatory decision-making. And you see like a kind of path from the start, 2022, we started with a development phase where we set up all the procedures and tooling and processes to execute studies for EMA. And we started with 4 studies in the first year, but we're now in 2025, we're getting close to about 100 studies a year running for the European Medicines Agency. And this is exciting. Actually, today, we are running approximately 50 studies at the same time in Europe for EMA. Now, this would not be possible without this community. OHDSI, the common data model that we use, and all the analytics that have been built and we are building at the coordination center have been really instrumental to get to this point. Of course, you also need data, and there is a lot of data in Europe. George nicely showed the picture, the publication that we made within Eden, more than 200 data sources, and many of those data sources are actually part also of the DARWIN EU network, which now contains 30 data partners, and we will be extending this to approximately 40 data partners by the end of this phase. We have 1 more year to go then within the current contract, and then we will see what happens. What's really exciting for me about this, of course, the impact that we have on patient care. There have been a couple of studies that have been really impactful also for decision making. But what's also nice is that DARWIN EU is really stimulating also the adoption of the OMCDM in Europe. Many data sources have been mapped to OMOP CDM by now, but also many projects in Europe are leveraging the OMOP OHDSI work. And with that, I'd like to thank everybody for helping out with that, the full OHDSI community, all the data partners, and I'm also very proud of the staff of the Coordination Center that has made this possible. Thank you very much.
Back down. Thank you, Peter. Okay, now may I ask Lisbeth Peters to come up and talk about OHDSI Europe. Okay, hold on, let me get this started. Ready?
Yes. Okay. I still remember how I felt when Peter and Patrick invited me back in October last year to host the OHDSI Europe Symposium 2025. I felt excited. What an opportunity for OHDSI Belgium, but also nervous. Could we actually pull it off? But I heard somewhere that feeling the emotions of nervousness and excitement, actually you experience it similarly in your body. So I chose to be excited. Organizing an OHDSI Symposium is hard work. All my respect goes out to the organizing team to organize this symposium, but also for Erasmus MC, who has been organizing and will continue to organize the OHDSI Europe Symposium. But it was so much worth it. The love and connections I felt throughout these 3 days is something I never experienced before. And I will carry this forward and use it as a driver and motivation to continue to push the OHDSI mission moving forward. The OHDSI Europe Symposium 2025 was hosted at our university, Hasselt University, in the eastern part of Belgium. We were sold out a few days before we went live and welcomed more than 380 participants representing more than 20 different countries, different continents, different stakeholders, and more than 19 dietary restrictions. It was an exciting agenda that kicked off with introductory talks of Peter, Patrick, and I, followed by a national node session where the potential of the national node activities were showcased through the fascinating and diverse work that is done by the UK, Finland, and Italy. But also the other national nodes share some very funny insights through the movies that they pre-recorded. This session was followed by the lightning talks, which is always a highlight because then also more junior works can be presented. We had a very long collaborator showcase session offering the opportunity to network and connect. And after approximately 4 hours of networking, we rejoined again in the plenary for the closing session. Together with the panel, we reflected on the questions: what will be the effect of the European health data space legislation? And what can and will be the role of the OHDSI community in the implementation of this legislation? The overarching key message of the symposium was clear. Collaboration is what we need. The EHDS is coming, and the OHDSI community is ready to support the implementation. We have summarized all these fascinating insights from the panel, but also from the other talks in a full report of the symposium, which you can consult already with scanning the QR code that will pop up at the end of this video, but it will also be made available through the OHDSI Europe website soon. Scaling up real-world data to generate reliable evidence can transform the lives of patients. And this is a wicked problem. And wicked problems can only be solved by networks of thinkers. OHDSI is the most amazing network of thinkers that I am aware of. And I am so grateful to be part of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Elizabeth. Yeah. So if you want to take a picture of the QR code, if you want to see more about the meeting, I'll give a moment there. Okay. And next we have Nicole Pratt, who will be talking about AIDEN.
Okay, well, good morning, everybody, and thank you so much for the opportunity to present what's been happening down under in Australia in the last couple of years. So what we would like to announce this morning is the generation of our AIDEN network, so AIDEN rather than, or ARDEN I should say, so the Australian Health Data Evidence Network. So ARDEN represents for us a really transformative step forward for the Australian health data research, and one that we've been working really hard to achieve ever since my very first OHDSI Symposium 12 years ago now, it seems. With AIDEN, our vision is to enable standardised federated health data analytics across public hospital systems in Australia, empowering researchers to generate insights efficiently, securely, and importantly, collaboratively. So Australia's hospitals generate vast amounts of valuable data, just like everywhere across the world. And these data are incredibly rich. They contain information on diagnoses, treatments, medicines, and outcomes. Yet much of the potential remains untapped, particularly in Australia, because EMR data have been so fragmented across the states of Australia, and access to those data has been increasingly and frustratingly complex and really hard. So AIDEN aims to solve that challenge. By supporting the transformation of hospital-based EMR data to the OMOP Common Data Model, we're building a foundation that allows researchers to analyse data consistently and comparatively across state borders, without moving or compromising the data security. So as you can see up here, AIDEN is built on 5 foundational pillars. And first, of course, is all about the data. So what we're doing with ARDEN is really trying to support each of the states to translate their data to the OMOP Common Data Model in a consistent and a cohesive way. Second, once the data are standardised and available, we want to leverage those data to answer questions that are high priority questions that are informed and importantly co-designed with our clinicians and our data custodians across the states. And through the conduct of a series of exemplar projects that will be funded through this program, we really want to accelerate research in areas such as cancer variation in care and outcomes, cardiac admissions across Australia, and also build the evidence base of the prevalence of chronic conditions in hospitals. So third, we're not just building infrastructure, we're building people. With AIDEN, we really want to uplift Australian researchers in the use of the OMOP Common Data Model and in best practice scientific research. And hopefully that will generate the evidence that hospitals need to improve patient care. Fourth, AIDEN will deliver shared federated resources, tools and reusable solutions across Australia. We're a small country. We need to work together to reduce a lot of the research waste that happens with people going at it alone. So lastly, AIDEN will support coherence in the approach to data harmonisation and consistency, importantly, in data governance and policy and ethics applications. And we really want to try to strike the right balance between data utility and data privacy, which is always so important. So at its heart, as George mentioned, AIDEN is about building trust and transformation. So trust because we're committed to maintaining state-based data sovereignty, data privacy and data security, and transformation because we're moving from a really fragmented, isolated data silo environment into a coordinated national evidence ecosystem. So, in summary, for us, it's more than just building a network. It's a national commitment to using data for impactful research in a responsible and collective way. So the AIDEN initiative, as you've probably realised right now, is a basically a rip-off of Eden. And we're very proud to to follow in the footsteps of the IMI Eden project. It's been wonderful to see the progress of Eden and, of course, the Darwin Initiative. And we really want to follow in those footsteps and generate the evidence and have the impact that Eden has had in Europe. And, of course, Australia does follow a lot of the European medicines regulation. So it's a really great collaboration for us to have. So in the end, Eden will invite hospital researchers, we'll invite researchers generally across Australia, including data custodians, to work together to use OHDSI and the OMOP approach to really generate evidence and impact healthcare in Australia. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Nicole. All right, so now we're going to recognize our international leaders. Small to you can see it looks a little bit like a globe. It looks like a globe. It's not actually a globe, it's a puzzle. It's a puzzle made of many pieces. So each of these you can see about how big. And a puzzle symbolizes two things that OHDSI is trying to do. One is, we look at human health, and in some cases veterinary health, as a puzzle that we need to solve. So we use evidence to decipher the physiology puzzle. And the other puzzle we have is that we have populations around the world, and we at OHDSI try to put those populations together to create a large evidence network with which we can generate more reliable evidence. So in two ways, OHDSI solves puzzles. And so we would like everyone on this slide who are the international leaders to come forward now onto the stage, and we have something for you. Come on up. So if you're on the slide, now's the time to get up here. And we'll take a picture. And to recognize your contribution, each of you will receive such a puzzle where we've taken the liberty of pre-assembling the slice of the earth that you're mainly focused, but I'm afraid you're going to have to solve the rest of the puzzle. Thus emphasizing that the point of being an OHDSI is not to work within your region, but to collaborate around regions. So we're asking you to put in the effort to solve the rest of the puzzle around your region.
Yes, different regions. I hope they manage to find a dog for Singapore. Pretty tiny. Yeah, it's gonna be a tiny dog. Maybe it's on here somewhere. Put it together like that. Put it together like that. Yes. Okay. Nico, I have a piece of Australia.
All right, thank you.
Later on, we'll put it together.
We have to hold on to this the whole day.
Sorry. Yeah. Thank you, all of you, to your contributions to OHDSI.